Hello and welcome to another online review. Today we're going to be talking about the Huntsman Winter's War and a couple of other things. We're going to try and branch out and do more than just movies for you, as I'm also interested in obviously books and TV shows. But Huntsman Winter's War, uh, we'll start with that. Um, the sequel prequel to Snow White and the Huntsman, because half of the film falls before Snow White and Huntsman and half of it falls afterwards. So it's a bit odd in that regard. Um, but it's just been released about a week ago over here in the UK. I believe the US gets it at the end of this week. Is it as good as Snow White and the Huntsman? No. No, unfortunately it isn't. Is it a good film? No, unfortunately, it isn't that either. It's the first it's the first directorial debut for Cedric Nicholas Troyan, who's done some second unit work before, but this is his first big feature film. And he's got an all-star cast. I mean, Charlize Theron, you've got Chris Hemsworth in there, Emily Blunt, Jessica Chastain. I mean, you would be really hard-pressed not to get a better cast than that, but unfortunately, either he doesn't make the use of them or the writing's not up there. It could be a combination of the two, but Charlize Theron is not only possibly one of the most beautiful women in the world, but also one of the most talented actresses in the world. I've seen her in just about every character you can possibly think of in her films in the past. But this one, she just seems to be phoning it in. She really does. Emily Blunt, also a fantastic actress, absolutely amazing. But this has to be possibly one of her weakest performances. It's just very two-dimensional. There's just nothing for you to grab hold of to build an emotional connection with the Ice Queen. Now, okay, fair enough. She's supposed to be a bad guy, as is obviously Charlize Theron's Queen. But the Ice Queen is. I'm not going to go into too many trailers because obviously it hasn't come out in the US yet. I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't seen it yet. But you're supposed to be able to build up a bit of an emotional connection between you and the Ice Queen, although she is a baddie. Charlize Theron's Queen is just an all-out bad person, but we knew that from Snow White and the Huntsman. No different in this one, other than perhaps she hasn't got quite as much depth this time round. Chris Hemsworth is fun to watch as always. I mean, he has been accused in this film of basically just playing Thor. Well, yeah, but he hasn't. He wasn't given a lot more to do. I mean, basically, he's just great in fight scenes. He throws his axe. He knocks people around. You know, that's what Thor does. And he wasn't exactly given the lines in this one to really do much more. He's playing off of Jessica Chastain as the love interest for him in this one, and she's good. She's to be fair, possibly her and Chris Hemsworth are the two bright points of the film. They do have a chemistry. It does takes a bit, but it does work as you follow them from childhood through to where they are in the film. Um, so it isn't a good film. It isn't. It's very shallow. It's very weak. The writing's not great. The acting, as I say, even for Chris and you know Jessica Chastain, even though they are the bright points of the film, even they don't really seem to get to grips with their characters. They just don't seem to care, and that seems to pervade through the entire cast. You know, there are some fun moments, some great fights, um, but for me, the brightest point of this film were the visuals. There are some gorgeous visual effects, and just the scenery and all of it. I mean, there are some moments when you're sitting there and you're watching what the CGI are doing on the screen for you, and it's just amazingly beautiful just to watch. So visuals are fantastic, but unfortunately, it's let down by the direction um, and the acting from these great actors. So, yeah, A Huntsman Winter's War, worth seeing. You could probably get away with waiting for it to come out on DVD or Blu-ray. Admittedly, the visuals wouldn't look so good on a small screen, but that's hardly a reason really to pay out to go to the cinema to see them. So I would probably wait for the DVD to come out. Marks out of 10, 5, maybe I'll give it a 5, 4 or 5, and that's really just for the visuals and the fun you watching Chris Hemsworth basically just having a laugh. He's smiling pretty much all the way through it, and he's obviously having a fun time. So yeah, 4 or 5 out of 10 for this one, I'm afraid. And the other film that came out recently is Midnight Special. The Midnight Special is the next one that I want to talk about, and that's a fantastic film. It really is. It's got a lot going for it. It's got a great cast. It's also one of those films that just sucks you in. You feel attached to these characters, which unfortunately is something that obviously didn't happen in Huntsman. It's not a particularly original plot. You've probably seen it before. Do you remember the film Paul from Simon Pegg, Nick Frost? It was a comedy, but it was a fantastic comedy, really, really funny. But basically, it's the same thing. Get alien or kid in this case to a specific point for them to be retrieved or go on to another realm or whatever you want to call it. But it's basically exactly the same film, except that Paul was done for laughs and Midnight Special was done for drama. But like I say, you've got a great cast. Michael Shannon is your main lead, and he's obviously, last time I saw him was as General Zod in Man of Steel. But in this one, he really is fantastic. He really does come across as great. We've got a couple of other great actors. Kirsten Dunst is in there. Joel Edgerton, another great actor. But the kid, Jaden Lieberher, he blows it out the park as this kid, this special kid. And you don't know what's up with this kid. I mean, is he an alien? Yeah, is he a mutant? Is it some sort of genetic experiment from the government? You really don't know until pretty much the end, because the kid is only finding out for himself as you're going through the story of getting him to this location that he needs to get to. But he's being chased by the government. He's being chased by this like cult leader who's got men chasing him because he originally comes from this community, this sealed off community that have sealed themselves off from the world. And he's become like a religious figure for them, because of he has these like attacks where he can blue beams come from his eyes and hit somebody, and then they sort of like have this transcendent experience. And because of that, he's become this religious figurehead for them. So his dad, Michael Shannon, kidnaps him from this cult and escapes to get him to this location somewhere else in the US. So you've got the cult following him to try and get him back. You've got the government following him because some of the things that he has said, which is basically a sequence of numbers, during these fits, these attacks that he has, are secret government code. So you've got Adam Driver, who's an NSA agent, is brought in to question the kid to find out what's going on. How does this kid know these secret government codes? It's good to see Adam Driver again. I mean, he's not playing a bad guy, so we haven't got Kylo Ren this time round. But he is good in it, but I don't think he quite reaches the peak of his talent on this one. I don't know where he's not phoning it in. It's not a bad performance, but it's not one of his best. But he does his part. It's a steady performance. It's okay. It's fine. And he does what he needs to do. And to be honest, all of the cast in the entire film are steady and firm and support everyone. And like I say, the film is good. It's not too long. It's not too short. You get everything you need to know. So it's a nice build up to the ending. But as I say, the ending, once you get there, it's nothing you haven't seen before. It's not a huge surprise. Nice visuals, great visuals. And it does leave the door open for perhaps a sequel in some form, because what happens at the end affects thousands of people in the United States. And it's not something the government can sort of say, oh, it was a weather balloon, or, lights were caused by methane gas over a swamp or something. No. Thousands of people see what you see at the end of this film. So there could be a sequel in it, especially when the last shot is of Michael Shannon, who's been locked away in a prison, obviously for abducting his son, evading the authorities and all that. So he gets locked away at the end. But that's a good film too. So you've got 2 films there. Out of 10, Midnight Special I'm going to give a 7. Like I say, it's a steady film. I wouldn't say it's a fantastic, absolutely brilliant, must go and see film, but it's definitely a good film. It's definitely worth a watch. It's worth a look. If you've got nothing else to do this weekend, go and see Midnight Special. You won't be disappointed. It is that good. But it's a 7 out of 10 for me on that one, I think. Okay, so they're the 2 films that I wanted to review this time round, Huntsman and Midnight Special. But moving on, I've just finished this book, which is, there we are, Star Wars, Lost Stars by Claudia Gray. I've read a few Star Wars books recently. Most of them have been recommended by other reviewers I see online. Some of them have been good, some of them not so good. Lost Stars is pretty good. I mean, it's an easy read. It's one of those books that you can just pick up and you start reading, and before you know it, an hour's gone by. It's one of those ones. It's an easy page turner, and the 2 main characters in it, Sienna and Fane, they you make a connection with them very early on, and it follows them from childhood up to adulthood. The period in this book goes from just before the destruction of the original Death Star to the Battle of Jakku, which is just before or a few years before the beginning of The Force Awakens. So it covers all 3 of your original Star Wars films, A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi. And then it covers a period between Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens. So that's a large period of time you've got there. And you follow these 2 characters from when they were like 8 or 9 through to, as I say, just before The Force Awakens, so obviously a lot older. And you follow their journey and how the way they think about what's going on in the galaxy. One of them wants to stay with the Empire, one of them can't handle what the Empire is doing anymore and leaves and joins the rebellion. That's not a spoiler, it's on the back of the book. So don't worry. But how they get to those points, and why does one of them stay with the Empire, and why does one of them feel they have to join the rebellion? It's very well done. Claudia Gray really does do a great job of making you really feel for these 2 characters, and what they go through. But as I say, it's not I wouldn't say it's a very in-depth book. It does brush over a lot of things, which you'll see when you read it. But as I say, it's an easy read. It's a page turner. It's one of those books, pick it up, start reading it. Before you know it, you're a third of the way through it. So it's really very, very good and well worth a read. So Star Wars Lost Stars, out of 10, I'm going to give that one, I'm going to give that a 7 as well. So that's worth a read if you're into Star Wars at all. And finally, a couple of TV shows we've been watching recently. Arrow, The Flash, and Legends of Tomorrow. They're all DC TV shows. All of them are very popular on the TV at the moment. Some, if I was going to rank them, I'd be ranking it, The Flash as number 1, The Arrow at number 2, and Legends of Tomorrow way down in number 3. Supergirl is on there as well. I'm not a big Supergirl fan, unfortunately. It just hasn't grabbed me. It's still in its first season. I don't know. It's not because it's Supergirl. The character of Supergirl I've got no problem with, but it's just very light and fluffy, and even the dramatic action sequences and whatever you've seen better in other shows. For example, Arrow and Flash. So it's not bringing anything really new to the table. Um, the girl who plays Supergirl is fine. You know, she embodies the comic character just fine. But it just hasn't got the grip to it that the other shows have. Now Arrow, um, I put that at number 2 below the Flash. It would have been number 1, but recently the writing seems to have got very slack. It's into its fourth season now. It's fourth season. I don't know whether they're running out of ideas. God, I hope not. If it's only in season 4, but sometimes the episodes just feel very weak. Plot holes that you could drive a semi truck through. Um, and the flashback sequences in the Arrow are just a waste of time. They really don't do much, and I really don't care about them anymore. I love the characters, and 4 seasons in, and I've followed them, and after that amount of time, you get to know who you like and you don't like, But all the main group, I really haven't got a problem with. I suppose some of them do serve a bigger purpose. Now, obviously, Oliver Queen is your main one. Felicity Smoke is his love interest, is second there. Deagle is pretty cool. Fear has his sister has some good points, but once again, they don't use her to her full potential. In an episode I've just seen, where the villain of the week basically can control these robot bees that she's created, and she takes over Parmatech, where Felicity is the chairman, and she's basically got Felicity and Fear alone in this office, and she's got a gun on them. Now, Fear at this point has been trained by the League of Assassins. She is one of the most dangerous, deadly people in the world when it comes to fighting. And she is 2 to 3 foot away from this girl holding a gun who's got no fight training at all. She's a computer nerd. She wouldn't, I'm surprised she knows what end of the gun to point at the people. But you've got this trained assassin who's 2 to 3 foot away from her, and Fear's basically just trying to talk her down. I've seen her in previous episodes take guns off of people, take knives, swords, bows off of people when she's further away from them. And yet she can't take down this computer nerd girl who's 2 to 3 foot away from her and just end the entire danger right there. So that's pretty chic. That's pretty crappy, really. But Laurel Lance, she isn't being used to her full ability anymore. I think they really have run out of things to do with her. So God knows what they're planning for her. But yeah, so Arrow comes at number 2. The Flash is definitely my number 1 at the moment. The entire Flash team is just so fun to watch. The writing's stronger, the effects are fantastic. Do they have some plot holes? Yeah, but then all shows do in some episodes. Some are always stronger than others. But just the entire Flash ensemble, I feel, is stronger and better, and they each have their strengths and weaknesses, so they all pander for each other, they all fill in the gaps for you, so it's not so bad. You don't mind that some of them are perhaps weaker in some areas, because the other one's going to step up and back them up. Barry Allen is fantastic, great character, and is being played really well by the young man who plays him. So that's great. But then we get to the bad one, third place, Legends of Tomorrow. Oh my God. I had such high hopes for this, because although it's comprised of a group of B-list villains from the Arrow, and some B-list heroes from the Arrow, they are all good characters. On an individual, on their own right, they're good. But for some reason, when you get them together with this Time Master Rip Hunter, it began with, great, okay, first episode, right, we're going to go and stop Vandal Savage, this immortal bad guy who is going to destroy the future, and I've got you all together to go and stop him. It's a great premise, a lot of promise, great, but from the first, second, third episode, it was just getting weaker and weaker. The fight scenes were done so much better in Arrow and the Flash. The writing is weak and poor. The plot lines they seem to be spending more time travelling through time, fixing their own mistakes because they've caused these problems, than they are finding Vandal Savage and trying to stop him. And even when they do find him, they seem to not put much effort into killing him, which is the whole purpose of the mission. The only good point, and this is a really big good point, is the jokes, the humour on this show. The two bad guys who play Captain Cold and Rory, his psychic. So you've got the ice gun and you've got the flame gun. Those two guys are absolutely hysterical together, and the one-liners they keep throwing out just have me laughing out loud. I mean, they're really, really good. Snark, that was it. Snark and Rory, Captain Cold, and the man with the flaming gun. Yes, I don't think he has actually got a nickname as such, but those two are hilarious, and they really add a dimension to the show that's needed, because without the humour, it would just be terrible from beginning to end. So I'll keep watching it in the hopes. I mean, we're obviously probably about halfway through the first season now. So I'm going to keep watching it in the hopes it gets better, but something's got to happen, because at the moment it's just not working at all. And although for some reason it seems to be getting critical praise from reviewers, the fans or the people, the casual viewing public, just don't seem to be grabbing it at all. I might be wrong, but everyone I've seen comment on it online or whatever just hasn't liked it. So yeah, I don't know what that's all about. But anyway, the critics obviously like it, and the networks probably listen to the critics more than they listen to us. So they'll probably get renewed for another season. But yeah, so there you go. So that's my top 3 programs in the DC universe at the moment: The Flash, Arrow, and Legends of Tomorrow. So yeah, that's it. That'll do for today. I hope that was of some interest to you. You guys take care, and let's be careful out there. See you next time.